What's up, world? Welcome to a new episode of I Bleed Sports. As you know, I am the host, Brandon Janeau, and like always, on all podcast platforms everywhere, Brandon Janeau Show. Social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Threads, uh, Facebook. Yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook. Lord jeez, that's how bad. God damn it. Um, Brand New Show, and of course, YouTube channel Brand New Show. That's a damn shame. I literally had a complete nutter blackout for a second right there. But yeah, uh, um, this is a very special edition of this, man. It's a very special edition because it is official. It is official. The final four of the college football playoffs and who will be playing in the semifinals this New Year's Eve. Well, New Year's Day, I think they play on New Year's Day. I'm not. Yeah, New Year's Day, I think. Yeah, New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. One of these fucking days, you know how it goes. In the next couple of weeks, next couple of weeks. Um, the four is going to be Michigan at number one, Washington at number two, Texas at three, and Alabama at four, which means Michigan will be playing against Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and Texas and Washington will be playing against each other in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. So how did we get to this point of the Final Four, right? The semifinals of the college football playoffs. Well, very simple. Yesterday, started Friday actually. Washington beating Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. That was a hell of a game. I think Washington won 38 to 28. I think, if I'm not mistaken. Um, First quarter, Washington just dominated Oregon. It looked like a open and shut case that Washington was just easily going to just walk to the college playoffs. But Oregon put up a fight in that game. Last second drive, Bo Nix had a chance, and yeah, Washington pulled it out, won the game, are officially now the Pac-12 champions, finished the season 13-0, and ended up second seeded in the playoffs with the committee, um, which led into yesterday a bunch of chaos, which we were all waiting to see, and that is pretty obvious. Well, Texas started off first. They played noon against Oklahoma State, and the game was pretty much over by halftime. Texas just dominated Oklahoma State. It was no competition in that game. I think the score was like 42 to 24, something like that. It was a dominant game, dominant performance by Texas. They crazy as it sounds, that is the first Big 12 championship that they have won since they reestablished the Big 12 championship games. That's crazy. So for 10 years, what, for, no, not even 10 years, for what, 8 years? I think this is when the college playoff became a thing. And the first, I think, year and a half, first year, 2 years, the Big 12 didn't even have a conference championship game. I think after the TCU and Baylor debacle, the first damn college playoffs, they're like, yeah, we're gonna put a conference championship game in this shit because this is ridiculous. Um, but for the most part, man, yeah, uh, Texas got in because of that game. Well, they were saying Texas still had to wait to see where they were gonna go, but we all fucking knew what the fuck it was about to be. Let's be real about something for a second. Um, which led into the SEC championship game, which was the game that everybody really was waiting to see, and that is uh Georgia versus Alabama. And for the most part, the game went back and forth, but Alabama always felt like they were more in control than Georgia was. And Alabama, of course, would take the SEC away from Georgia, beating them 27 to 24 um, in that game. Very, very, very crazy game. How it all went down. Alabama it's something I kept saying about something I kept saying about Texas. I mean, Georgia this whole year was Georgia feels like a team that is just waiting to play someone that could just beat them. Like they never felt like a team that was ready to really jump to that next level. It felt like Georgia was just playing and biting their time until they played a team that was just way better than they were. And that's exactly what happened. They just played a team that was just way better than they were at this moment. Not saying Alabama, Georgia and Alabama played 10 times. I think it's split. I don't think Georgia was a great team this year. I kept saying that, and you know, and yeah, it's not surprising that Georgia lost this game to Alabama. Well, yes, it is. I'm not gonna lie. I thought Georgia would actually beat Alabama, but um, Georgia just did not have enough to really compete with them. They were more injured than they were actually competitive, and I just felt like that was kind of the biggest downfall for Georgia. But I literally posted on Instagram, right, when Alabama took the lead, I was like, man, to be honest with you, if Alabama wins this game, this shit is over. We don't even need to have the I was like, this shit is over. And I feel like as good as as good as um Alabama has been the last couple of weeks. I still don't think Alabama's great either. But when you look at the way Alabama played Georgia, they won that game. They hadn't lost in the SEC the entire year, so Alabama should have got in. Which led to Michigan, Iowa, and Florida State and Louisville. Uh, it was pretty obvious. Michigan wins. Michigan's in. And for Florida State, they kind of still had to see what would have happened if they would have played. And Michigan, for the most part, dominates the game. Michigan beats um, Iowa 26-0, and for Florida State, they win 16-6. Not a great game, not a dominant game. I literally said for the last couple of weeks, I said losing Jordan Travis, Florida State had to dominate the next 2 weeks, and they exactly did not do that. They barely beat Florida, who also didn't have their starting quarterback that week last week in that game. So there's really no excuse for why you completely had to. Here's what the problem I think what people are having a hard time with this, and this is why I felt like people were I think thinking in their heads like, "Yo, this is obvious. Florida State got put forward last week, so how the hell did they make the? They didn't even make the playoffs this week. Very simple. Last week, every team struggled in rivalry week. I don't think any team was 100% dominant outside of Texas. Texas dominated Texas Tech, I think 57-7 last week. But after that, Oregon struggled with Oregon State. Washington needed a last second field goal to beat Washington State. Georgia barely beat Georgia Tech. Alabama literally needed a 4th and 31 to win the game against Auburn last week, which probably would have killed all of this conversation if Auburn would have just learned how to play defense for one fucking play. But for everybody, and Florida State barely beat Florida. And then when you look at the conference playoffs, look at the conference championship game yesterday, Alabama versus Georgia, that was the obvious going to be the toughest game of the whole entire fucking college playoff. Like Washington, Oregon, and Georgia and Alabama, those are the two toughest games. There was no reason for for you to struggle against Louisville. And I know you had a freshman in the game, but that's when you believe that you already are in, and you think no matter what, I'm already in. So it doesn't matter how I play this game, I'm already in. And that's a terrible way of thinking. For everybody that's sitting up here and trying to say Florida State deserved to get in. No, the fuck they didn't. They didn't deserve to get in. Just because you finished 13-0 doesn't mean you were deserving to get in. What it looked like, and like I said, Florida State played in the weaker conference, ACC. I told my like me and my brother Juan was on Instagram today doing our show. Jack's Wild. Like we literally watched their selection together and talked about the game and talked about how it looked. And me and him both said the same thing before even the selections even came out. It's pretty obvious. It's Alabama's, Michigan, it's Washington, it's Texas. Michigan's one, Washington's two, Texas three, Alabama's four. The moment Texas gets the three slot, Florida State's out. Florida State is out because I don't think people understand. Like, if Texas got third, there's no competition. Alabama's in because you have no way. Now, Florida State got third, there's a different conversation. Florida State gets third, okay, now it's between Texas and Alabama. But the moment they said Texas is third, you should have known you're not getting in. Florida State, and like I said to my brother Juan today, it's Florida State lost the moment Louisville lost to Kentucky last week. They were out the moment Louisville lost to Kentucky because you lost again. They lost to a team that was what sixth best team, maybe seven, eight best team in the SEC, and they lost to them, and they were in the top 10 by that time. That's a bad way of losing a situation. Like you had no leg to stand on after that, and they kept them in the top 15 for you to make it seem like okay, this is a compelling game, kind of. But you had no chance of making the college playoffs, especially after Alabama beat Georgia, because that just boosts Texas to the third slot and Alabama past you. Georgia, even though I said for the last couple of weeks, Georgia just did not look like a great team, Georgia still had a 29 game winning streak. Georgia still was the back to back champions. Georgia was undefeated, and Georgia was the preeminent number one team going into the conference championships. So it didn't matter how Alabama beat Georgia as long as Alabama beat Georgia. And the fact of the matter is, they kind of dominated Georgia in that game. And it's like, once that kind of hits, it's like, I don't think you really can do anything about that. At the end of the day, man, I'm not surprised that, I'm not surprised at all that this is how the Final Four looks. I kind of expected it last night. Like I said, when I saw Alabama even up against Georgia, I said, if Alabama wins this game, the Final Four is very simple. This is the easiest damn pitch you've ever seen. Yes, Jordan Travis being out is one thing, but also I feel like the fact that Georgia losing Alabama and Florida State again not having a proper resume. You didn't have a good resume. You played in a weaker conference, and you can't even sit here and say the Pac-12 was the weaker conference this year because it wasn't. The Pac-12 had like six, seven, eight teams in the top 25 at one point. Name me one team in the ACC outside of Florida State, and Louisville that stayed that long in the pack in the top 25. You can't. It's it's that's how bad the ACC was this season. And the fact of the matter is, you struggled damn near in every game you played in this year. In the ACC, you barely beat Pitt. You barely beat Pittsburgh. Like you barely beat Pittsburgh. You barely beat Miami. Like it's certain times when you're watching this and you're like, God damn, you Duke. The best thing for them in a Duke game was Riley Leonard barely even. Riley Leonard didn't even start in that game. And the fact of the matter is, you barely beat Duke. The only game you dominated 100%, and even that game you didn't even dominate. You didn't dominate till literally the second half, and that's LSU. And that's the best one you had this entire fucking year. The Clemson game was you barely won that game, and then last night you played Louisville earlier in the season. And I don't think Louisville was even ranked at that time. And then you played Louisville last night, and you still struggled. The fact of the matter is, if that pick doesn't happen in the red zone, you probably lose that game. This is to sit up here and try to say that Florida like Florida State deserved to get in because they're undefeated is the dumbest shit on the planet. They did not deserve to get in just because they're undefeated. Tell me one game that you felt like Florida State absolutely won outright outside of the LSU game. That's it. That's it. They put up 45 points against LSU. The rest of the season, they barely had a 40-point game like that. The game you got Jordan, The game Jordan Travis got injured in, you struggled in that game. Like, like what are we? What is the concept? What is the conversation here? For people to sit up here and say Florida State should have got in is crazy. The only reason why you're sitting up there and saying that is because they're 13-0. That's it. But if they would have got in, they would have got their ass destroyed by Michigan. Absolutely killed by Michigan. And I would get my eyes on college football. Of course, the bowl games have been announced. Who's gonna play who, when they're gonna play. Of course, the New Year's Six bowls and everything. And I'm gonna talk about those six games. Of course, I'm gonna talk about the Michigan, Alabama, Washington, Texas. But I just wanted to get on here and talk about that, man. So how do I feel about this? The final six, because the final six for for them was the final six for um college was what Michigan one, clearly, Washington two, Texas three, Alabama four, Georgia no, Florida State five, and Georgia six. Of course, my crazy six, you know, and this is it. I got the same four in the same order: Michigan one, Washington two, Texas three, uh, and Alabama four. Um, my five though is different. Um, and my five goes like this: despite them losing, I still give Oregon fifth. I think Oregon's the fifth best team I said all season. I'm not gonna sit up here and lie and say Oregon's some terrible team now because they lost to fucking Washington. No, 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 no. Oregon still played their ass off. They played aggressive. They played tough. They played like a team that wanted to win, um, and had a chance to. And my sixth best team. Oh, that's a little harder than I thought. It's between Ohio State and Georgia. I don't think Florida State is my sixth best team. I did not think Florida State did great this year. They didn't do absolutely, they didn't absolutely dominate everybody. Georgia barely did either. And to me, I give it to Ohio State, I guess. So Ohio State, my sixth best team. I didn't think they were great this year, but when you compare them against Georgia, I trust Ohio State a little bit more. And that's why I'm going with Ohio State over Georgia as my sixth best team this year in college football. But yeah, Georgia finishing sixth, Florida State finishing fifth. Like I said, I'll be doing my other I Believe Sports episode Tuesday, which I'll be giving my eyes on college football, what I'm looking forward to in these next couple of weeks. These bowl games are coming up. I'm going to talk about that, but also more importantly, be talking about you know pretty much giving you my favorite games and what I think of the Final Four, really. And well, that's what I'm doing right now. So the Final Four is Alabama, Michigan versus Alabama, Texas, Washington versus Texas. What do I think of those two games? Like I said, I thought it was the right teams. I saw it last night, and I thought those were the right teams to be. I thought those were the right those were the right four teams to be in there. The conversation that everybody's now saying is I can't wait for next year, which is going to make the playoffs expand. And to be honest with you, I think it's still going to be a little bit crazier and a little bit more, you know, over the top. Like you don't know really what's going to happen. For me personally, I think this was a game. This is the best four teams that the playoffs have had ever because Michigan and Alabama represent a legendary um, historic schools, Texas and Washington also. But the fact that this is actually, I don't know who the fuck wins. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know who actually wins the college playoffs. I don't know who wins the national championship this year. And I think that's the exciting part because I don't know who wins the national championship this year. I don't know if it's Alabama. Michigan, Washington, or Texas. And that's what the fuck you wanted to be. You wanted to be very intriguing. You wanted to be this come in and watch these games because this is football. This is college football. We're about to see. My brother Wine asked me today, do I think Alabama could beat Michigan? I don't know. I don't know. I've seen Michigan get into the playoffs and immediately get their ass beat by TCU. Shit happens. I've seen Michigan get in the playoffs and then lose to, some fucking team that they shouldn't be losing to. It happens. I saw them get destroyed by Georgia one year. I saw them lose to TCU in a shootout one year, another year. It's just like I don't know. Is this Michigan's year? I believe Michigan's been the best team this whole year. But with timing and preparation and for weeks on end, Nick Saban gets a chance to prep for this team. I don't know what Michigan is going to look like going into this game. Now, Jim Harbaugh, of course, is not suspended, so he gets a chance to also prep for this upcoming game. But I don't know how this is going to look. And I truly believe that Texas versus Washington game might be the best game we see all fucking year. Better than the Washington, Oregon, better than the Georgia, Alabama, better than this might be the best game we see all goddamn year. Washington versus Texas. I think that might be the best game this whole year. So for those four teams, I can't wait to see what happens on New Year's Day. I really fucking can't. I literally cannot wait because that is going to be the two best games we could have asked for. Like I said, this is the best four teams. This is literally the best four teams that the college playoffs have ever done. like, yeah, this is the best four teams. Like, this is it. Damn near took them close to a decade to get it right. Finally, that you finally figured out what the fuck the criteria of the best four teams look like. But I'm looking forward to this, man. I can't wait to see what these two games are gonna be. Like I said, the Rose Bowl is the first game on New Year's Day. It's gonna be Michigan versus Alabama, and then the nightcap is Texas versus Washington. I'm looking forward to those two games, man. I cannot wait. Like I said, I'll be doing more about this, but man, I had to get on here to do that, man. For me, man, college football this season, uh, exactly what we kind of needed it to be. Of course, with the craziness of what's going to happen next year, with the conferences pretty much expanding, going into pretty much a one juggernaut SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, of course, getting a lot more people. ACC starting to get some teams coming in. The Pac-12 officially being over, with Oregon State and Washington State both saying they're going to go to the Mountain West. Now you have literally just four actual conferences left. Um, and it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how this is all gonna play. I don't know how they're gonna particularly do the conference playoffs now because it does feel like it's just a two conference the league, but we should see how they're gonna manage this. The Big 12 and the ACC still have a chance, but with this happening today, does Florida State say, you know what, fuck this shit? I just go to the SEC since the SEC, no matter what, gets in. What does that say about us? So it gets to that point. I don't know how this is all going to plan out, but at the end of the day, like I said, those two games, this might be the best college playoffs that they've probably ever had. And I don't think any of these games are going to be 100% blowouts. I think this is going to be one game's going to be very hard, very defensive savvy, very defensively sound, and the other game is going to be a complete another shootout. Now, the craziest thing about this is I don't know which game is going to be which. And that is what makes this the best college playoffs that they've ever had. So I'm looking forward to it. Until next time, man. Congratulations to Michigan, Washington, Texas, and Alabama for making the semifinals of the college playoffs. May the best team win. To the rest of the field, New Year's Six, here we come. I am Brandon This is I Bleed Sports. It's time to go natty, man. Go to the national championship. Let's see what happens. And also, I'm trying to find tickets to that game because it's here in Houston. So, and the tickets are fucking crazy high. So hopefully, I can find some tickets. If I gotta be in the bleachers somewhere, I'm going to watch this goddamn game. Till next time, I'm Brandon Janeau. Peace.